All right, so before we dive into mindfulness at work, Eileen and Scott both have offered to share some body-centered mindfulness practices. So it's late in the afternoon, and we wanted to, do some movement a little bit. So let's start with Eileen. Pass over to you.
Scott's going to do the fun one. My daughter says I'm not enough fun to do those fun ones, so. Okay. Anyway, I do the serious one. So everyone stand. I know you were already standing. But something that's really important to me is this idea that we are spirits living in our bodies. And so the idea to come present, fully present into our bodies is really important to me. So one exercise that I do, one stretch, is that I bring my hands together, and then I turn my hands upside down, and I stretch and I press down through my feet and out through my hands, and out from the heart, and out and down at the same time, because that's sort of an isometric thing that helps get you into your body. And then up. If you can't do it, don't worry. Just do the best you can and stretch up and down at the same time. And then pop your hands. Now you're in the power pose. And you can't be unhappy in this pose. It's like the victory pose. It's amazing. And then let your hands float down.
All right. Thank you. And I'm told that you should stay standing because Scott has another special body-centered mindfulness practice that he's going to share.
All right, cool. I married an Indian woman, and I was like, the token white guy at all these Indian functions I would go to. And so to make friends, we'd dance in a big group, and my gig was to turn everyday life actions into dance moves and then pass them on. So as an example, y'all know the changing of the light bulb, right? So maybe there's some music.
Okay, so cue music.
And be ready to think of your own. So first there's the changing of the light bulb. All right, everybody does the changing of the light bulb. Then you pass it to a friend.
Driving the bus.
Driving the bus.
Throwing the basketball.
All right, out there, someone say, yell something and do it.
Pass it to you. You guys come up with your own.
Come up with your own.
Everyday life move. Oh, yeah. She's reaching for the shelf way up high.
Reaching for the cheese.
There's fishing.
Walking the dog.
Walking the dog.
All right, thank you so much. And that's how we do in organizations, right? Just like that.
You thought this was going to be boring.
It's late in the afternoon. We want to move things around. But
mindfulness at work.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Eileen and Scott, for
you.
starting that way. So,
thank you, Rich.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. So we're just, it's so great to have you both here, each from, different industries, completely different organizations, different products, customer, everything, right? And for both of you, I know that mindfulness and the associated tools, empathy, compassion, are not only really important in your organizations, and you've been making lots of tremendous efforts to bring those in, but it really started for each of you at a personal level. Mm-hmm. So I'd be curious, your personal sort of interest, your story about how mindfulness became a part of your life, really. And we'll start with you, Eileen.
Yeah. Well, I ended up about 20 years ago, I started getting involved in yoga. And a couple years later, I found myself on a yoga retreat. I was getting divorced, and my two small kids, and my business was going crazy. And so I was pretty overwhelmed with my life. And getting divorced was actually helpful. It's crazy. Don't tell anyone I said that. But at least I had a little time for myself. It's crazy.
You got a round of applause.
It's funny. My daughter always says when I talk about regrets, no, Mom, that was the best thing you ever did. I was probably pretty crazed before. But anyway, I ended up having some time to actually go on a yoga retreat, which I would never have had before. And I found that meditating, we spent the first half hour of each day meditating, and I just was blown away by the possibility to be in such a bliss state. And so I just got more and more curious and started bringing it more into my life, going onto more retreats when my ex-husband had the kids. Let's see, I think it was about 15 or so years ago, I ended up so after I first got involved in yoga, then I was meditating. I committed to 5 minutes a day. I remember thinking, I can do this. I can do 5 minutes a day. And actually, I couldn't. So I found that I just couldn't keep that practice. And I ended up at the Chopra Center maybe 15 years ago, and it was good. And that was when I really anchored the practice. It was this idea, and I've said this before, and I probably shouldn't say this on stage, but what they said was, do it first thing in the morning, and they said, their advice was rise, pee, meditate. And it worked for me. So
yeah,
there you go.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks.
So I've been meditating and doing yoga every morning.
Wow.
Almost ever since.
Yeah, and in a sec I'll ask about how that then translated into the organization and the business. But Scott, I'd be curious for you.
Sure. I grew up on a farm in very rural Kansas. It's a hotbed of meditation.
No.
Like 60 minutes to the nearest movie theater rural. And when I was 10 or 11, I started to have a lot of questions about the family religion, which we were very much a part of our life, and didn't really like the answers I was getting. And I was on a quest for something different. I have an older brother who was out touring the world as a musician and had run out of money and moved back home. And long story short, one day, he kept disappearing for these long weekends, going somewhere. And one day, my sisters and I kind of pinned him down and asked, what he was doing. And he described this spiritual path, or this, religion that he had found. And as he described it and described its tenets and beliefs and practices, I just started weeping, just weeping. And it was like I'd come to my own truth, something I'd been searching for not just a couple years as a kid, but it felt like lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and it was finally here for me. And a part of that path is a meditative practice, a tuning in to your highest truth or the divine. And that's been a huge part of my life ever since.
Wow, and you were 13?
13.
Okay, wow, amazing, amazing. And then, so that's carried, sounds like it's carried through for both of you, having sort of this anchoring practice, then that you took into your organizations. So how did that work? What did that look like?
Right. It started for us that we were on a corporate retreat at Garrison Institute. And I think that was 13, 14 years ago. And we were visioning the future of the company. And we came up with 10 priorities. And one of them was presence. I don't know if we knew what we were talking about at the time or what that actually meant or how we were going to do that. But we knew we'd been reading this book, Otto Scharmer, and there was a group of people who wrote the book called Presencing. And we were taken by a lot of the ideas. And so we decided presence was one of our priorities. And soon after that, one of the business leaders was telling her husband about this presence idea, and he came up with this idea that we could, he'd heard of people doing this in businesses. I'm not sure what businesses at that point were doing this, but ringing a bell and taking 3 minutes of silence before meetings. So it's a good thing I was a business leader, because if I had brought it in, I tried to bring in dancing, and it didn't work. So it was a good thing it was a business leader, because people, took her a little more seriously in that realm, I guess. And so we started ringing the bell before meetings, and 3 minutes was so long. Oh my God. And people were a little restless, and some people wouldn't come into the room until after the moment of silence. And so we decided to just bring it down to a minute or a minute and a half. And so pretty much we've been doing that ever since. And I can tell you more about what happens, or I don't know if you want to talk about how you brought it in. Or
Sure, yeah. I mean, if you feel inspired to continue, or...
let's see, what was I going to say? Yeah, so I think you should talk first, and then I'll come back. I'm the eternal,
we have time. We have time, actually. So
what?
We have time.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
All right, we'll come back.
Okay, thanks.
So a few years ago, I was sitting down with the gentleman who runs our health and wellness programs about something else. My day job is I lead customer operations. There's like customer service for the 550 million members of LinkedIn. And I asked him, I said, we were meeting about something else, but at the end of the meeting, I said, Michael, do we do anything with meditation here? And he's like, well, we've done some stuff in the past. Wait a minute, do you do something? I'm like, I could do something. And he's like, yeah, you should totally do it. And I got all excited, and I went back to my desk and did nothing for 3 or 4 months. And then I was thinking about it more, and I kind of got excited. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a leader. Like, can I even do this? Like, is it okay? Am I going to get in trouble? So like a child, I had to go ask permission. I went to the VP of HR, ostensibly about something else. And at the end of the meeting, I'm like, Pat, I'm thinking about leading this meditation class. And she's like, yeah, you should totally do it. I'm like, and let me know how it goes. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I'm on the hook. And so I just started. I led my first class, and one person came, and we just sat across from, I'm sure they were just scared to hell, because it was just the two of us. And the next week there were 3 people, and next week there were 5 people, and now, a couple years later, probably over 1,000 people have come to just my class.
Yeah.
And it's not just me. We have 10 different locations with multiple meditation sessions per week. We've got online stuff. We've got speaker series. We've got a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And about 9 months or so ago, I raised my hand again and said, look, we've got all this stuff going on, but we don't have a program, right? So I wanted there to be a program. So we, again, raised my hand, and nobody said no. So we pulled together a bunch of volunteers, and it's kind of gelled into this thing that's grown legs, to the point where last month we had a mindfulness challenge for the month of September. And having done these things in the past, the wellness guys, like we did something for sleep, we expected maybe 600 people out of 10,000 would, join our challenge. We had 1,500 people join our mindfulness challenge. We partnered with Headspace and had tens of thousands of hours of people, meditating and doing other things.
And you offered Headspace to all the employees.
Yeah, we got everybody, a 1 or 2 month free subscription to Headspace. So we had content. We had another app that was tracking, attention. We had a couple weeks ago. We had Dan and Richie come and speak, and our speaker series for that one had 4 times the amount of attendees than our normal speaker series. So there's a there, and now it's just kind of harnessing it and bringing it and birthing it. Yeah. But for me, it was about getting out of the way. Yeah. There was nothing holding it back other than myself.
Yeah. Great, thank you. And Eileen, how did that look in your organization as it started to sprout?
Yeah. Well, I think what ended up happening is it created a little space. And I think when you have a little space, you have a different opportunity for choice. And so I think what started to happen both internally for me and in the company was we started to think a little differently about who we were as a company and what our purpose was and what we really wanted to achieve in the world and what was possible for a company to do. And I think just making a little space before meetings brings people in a little more focused way, and like you leave the spinning mind and things behind, and then you come and you focus, and you're a little more able to be present in the moment. One of the things I noticed for myself, just thinking about being in meetings, is that I'm able to kind of both, not all the time, but I'm able to notice what's going on both inside myself, to source my body. I was talking about that at the beginning, about the importance of the spirit in the body, and how many signals we get from our body all day long about, what to talk about, or whether we should do this or not, or whether this is a yes or a no. And so I'm noticing that I can both source myself for information and connect. I've heard this word co-mindful, and that's very interesting to me, this idea of tuning in to the other and being able to be with the other, whether it's one person and whether it's at home, my son or daughter or whatever, or whether it's in the workplace with one person in a difficult conversation, or whether it's in a meeting. To be able to both be with what's happening for me and learn to read those signals. I've been talking about this since I started to come to wisdom a few years ago, and it's really kind of new for me to understand why my hands are sweating, or what it means when my voice, when I start to race or speak too fast, or when my heart is pounding, or Ariana said goosebumps. She knows she's got a good idea when she gets goosebumps. So those little signals, starting to read those and be able to be with myself and also with another human who's right in front of me, that's I'm still learning, and I'm noticing when I can't. I'm noticing, that's what Sharon was talking about, noticing the moment. It's like practicing meditation in real life. And, on the cushion, that's important, and I do that every day. But being able to bring it right there into the meeting and try to remember what my purpose was in that meeting, what I was trying to achieve, but also be open to the ideas that are emerging in the room and to the people and the feelings that are underneath. And okay, I could go on to that. But I think the other thing that has happened that's so interesting is that the purpose thing, changing. I really feel like we're really looking at the possibility to change the model of success, to change what business is about, and to realize that, yes, we have to make a profit. We have to, otherwise we don't go on as a collective, as a group, and we don't have the impact that we can have. But the more we are mindful and purposeful in the work that we do, the more the work deepens and the more impact we have. And whether that's one person in a store connecting differently with a customer, or whether that's the deep sustainability work that we're doing throughout our supply chain, or caring about the workers in the factories and how we are with them. So it's I think the possibility to, like sometimes people say, well, are you more profitable, or is your business more successful? And I say, well, actually, that might be true. I know the value of our company was up 20% last year, but I didn't think of it like that. I thought, wow, we're doing a lot of amazing work. We're really...
It's really true. Yeah, it's true. Thank you. I know you have an industry-leading sustainability practice, and you also transitioned recently to a B Corp that was really focused on social impacts and being accountable to the metrics. So this deepening of purpose really seems to come through. What I'm hearing comes through the mindfulness practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have lots of practices that have kind of moved out of that. We're very passionate about this idea of personal growth and personal transformation.
Yeah.
And, some of our people have created programs for all the employees, which we're just prototyping still, about this idea of, learning about yourself. We do things like the Enneagram and, sort of helping people with self-awareness and learning this co-mindfulness. We don't actually call it co-mindfulness. I just picked up that word from someone. I love that word. But we talk about, being with others and giving and receiving feedback, speaking the truth with kindness, things like that. So there's a lot of work going on in a lot of different ways, and mindfulness is just a foundational piece.
Wonderful. Well, and Scott, how does this show up in your world?
Well, I wanted to talk about, Eileen was talking about, it strikes me as the authenticity that this practice allows us to have, right? And just being able to be myself as my own personal journey was incredibly important, incredibly transformative as a leader. So first of all, I think it's pretty cool that we're talking about mindfulness in the workplace at all, right?
Yeah.
And so I know earlier in the day there was this poll of, how many people in here are meditating, right? Or are meditators? Oh, come on, everybody's hand went up earlier. This is the participatory part of the question. And so, but my question is, how many of you are out at work as a meditator? Oh, that's pretty good.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot.
Most people, yeah.
So I wasn't a couple years ago. But it's very freeing when we can do that. A few years ago, I was preparing for kind of like a worship service. And I was supposed to be the musical talent for, the next day. So it was Saturday night, the performance was Sunday morning at my local service. And I had written this song on guitar, and I was trying to remember it. And I'd been working, and I hadn't really been practicing, and it was horrible. I couldn't even remember the song. And my inner talk track was, this is so bad, it's not up to I had all this, negative inner talk track. And it wasn't helping me, perform the song. And in the middle of it, I got this really profound, deep, clear moment of clarity. The voice of my highest self, or the voice of God, whatever you want to call it. And it's really sharp. It's like, hey, we don't have time for your bullshit. Okay. All right, let me just get out of my own way and just serve, right? And so for me, that's what this is about. It's about how can we take the same energy that we have here and directly translate it on the next day at work. Instead of filtering it so heavily that it doesn't show up, how do we directly translate our authenticity? And how do we directly, help spread that? Because it comes by example.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So for folks here who are interested in bringing that into their organizations, what sort of words of advice would you have to share with them about how to do this?
I would say the first thing is you have to do it yourself. You really have to practice and commit yourself. I was thinking about, when I didn't have time, when I was married. Sorry. But I think back that actually, I went to this Kundalini yoga class with this adorable young woman. It's great stuff. I hadn't done that kind of yoga. And she said that, she gave me these little 3-minute practices that were really great. And she said that this stuff, this personal, this meditation or breath work or yoga, you might call, some people call self-care, or think it's luxury, or some vacation, or idea to do something self-indulgent. She said, this is your civic duty so that you can show up in life as your full, true self.
Thank you.
That was Jen. She was amazing.
Yeah. +1. We don't have time for your BS. Okay? Get out of the way and just be authentic. I think, to your point, it has to be important to you for it to be important to anybody else. And so if you're making apologies for it, if you're saying, well, could you just try? No. You got to go in feet first, right? If they're not important to you, it's not important to anybody else. And build a community. What we're finding is there's a lot of people that are interested. They just need to be invited to the party. So build the community, and you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know how it's going to turn out. Just take the next step. Do it with a smile. the rest will come.
That's good, Scott. I like that because I know that I wasn't so confident about it when when it was coming into the company, and so I think to be confident and to believe that it's important and meaningful, and that's good. That's important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And is there any sort of watch outs for people? I think you've perhaps even just spoke to it, but so certainly what encouragements have you just shared, which are great, and then what are some cautionary tales or obstacles, things to look
Not
out?
too much crazy dancing.
You need more crazy dancing.
No, I think we need more crazy dancing, actually. Yeah. I've been trying to bring in more crazy dancing, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I mean, my own cautionary tale is just waiting too long.
Yeah.
Just staying up in my head too long and just not bringing it.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. And the it that we're talking about, by the way, right? Because we're talking about mindfulness, and so what are we really talking about here? One of the things we had discussed earlier was the impact that you were really interested in the impact on this for women, for example, right? You really you've been focusing on that. So what are we talking about here? What is the it that we're talking about? We've been talking about it for almost half an hour.
Yeah. Well, I think of mindfulness as being able to be present with yourself and for what else is happening around you. So yeah, awareness. And what I think a lot about is energy and spirit, how the spirit coming through us and energy, and that when we take the time to stop and notice and to be mindful, then we have the opportunity to choose. So to choose, to know. What do I want to say? What am I trying to say? Mindfulness, and in choosing is really where our power is. That energy. I'm not saying that right, but.
It gives us space to be our best selves.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. That's better. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, I think about mindfulness as a bridge word. I know it has a very specific meaning to some people, and mindfulness-based meditation is something very specific. In our work, I like to think of it as the broadest umbrella possible to think about wisdom, right? Wisdom that comes from a variety of traditions, a variety of practices, and bringing that to work in a secular way so that we can all enjoy it, while still trying to hold the purest form possible, right? So that's the dance. How do you bring in spirit? How do you bring in this life force in a secular way and make it sing?
Right, beautiful. That's good. I like that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's good.
So any last words for everyone here? We've just got
energy.
A little bit.
God, I was trying to say that thing about energy, and I got stuck. It was this idea of that when you're not being mindful, your energy is pulled in a lot of different directions, and so that being mindful helps us to take control, to take charge of that spirit and that life force that is ours, that is how we're going to actually be a force for good in the world and make a difference. So.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Eileen. Thank you all. Thank you.